Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the We Know Ball Show. We've got a lot of stuff lined up for you today, so let's get right into it. Alrighty, so we had a crazy Super Wildcard Weekend this last weekend with a whole bunch of games. So let's kind of get right into it. Starting with the first game, and it was the Seahawks and the Niners. I watched every single game this weekend, and the first half it really looked like the Seahawks came to play, and that's really what you love to see in these playoff games. So I was really happy to see that. I think Geno won his spot for the rest of his contract in Seattle. He may even get another couple years for a bump. That'd be great to see. I'd love to see that. Really happy for him and what he's doing. Purdy ended up finding rhythm. I think in that Shanahan style offense, it really doesn't matter who you put at quarterback, and they're gonna ball out. So it'll be exciting to kind of see what happens there. The second game of Saturday was the Jaguars and the Chargers. So far with my prediction board here, it's got 4.5 and 2. All right, and I'll explain why 4.5 and 2. So I got the 49ers pick correctly. Now, if you remember from the last episode, I had said this is kind of my toss-up game where it really depends on whatever quarterback you trust the most, and I had picked Herbert over T-Law, and I was somewhat mistaken, but I also think Brandon Staley got outcoached. He definitely got the blunt end of the deal in this game, and he got really soft that second half, way too complacent, and that's why the Jags won this game. And the crazy stat is Trevor Lawrence has never lost a single game on Saturdays. From high school to college to the NFL, never lost a game. So if he keeps that train rolling, it'd be a crazy sight to see. So I gave myself a full loss and a half a point because the analysis was very on point, even though I didn't get the game outcome correctly because I picked the Chargers. And the Jaguars won by 1 on a late last second field goal to win the game. So congrats to Jacksonville. Good luck against Kansas City. The first game of the Sunday slate was the Bills and the Dolphins. Once again, another super sloppy game by a super high caliber team, and kind of really kept the Dolphins in it. And I think the Dolphins could have won this game if the receivers would catch the ball. Jalen Waddle's one of my guys. He was a superstar on my fantasy team. I had a super stacked fantasy team. It was pretty great. But I was really kind of hoping the Dolphins would pull it off, give Cincy another home playoff game, because I think they're a great team, and it would be great to see them have another home game. But the Bills ended up kind of squeaking one away, and the tail of the tape will show who really comes out on I think Sunday for the Bills and the Bengals. The next game was the Giants and the Vikings. This one, it's destiny, it's fate. A New York sports team kicks a Minnesota sports team out of the playoffs. You see it with the Yankees and the Twins all the time. Huge Yankee fan. It always happens. And it's whenever the Giants are in the playoffs and they play the Vikings, it's bound to happen. They're going to beat them. So it was kind of crazy to see, and everyone was hating on Danny Dimes, in the beginning of the year, and the question marks of whether Saquon would be healthy enough to play through the whole season. And there were some bumps along the road, but there's bumps along the roads for all these teams. There's guys that got hurt. I mean, the 49ers are on their third string quarterback. Let's see here. I mean, the Vikings, a huge down thing for the Vikings is whenever they don't play at 1:00. They don't have that early slate game. That's a huge crutch for them. It's like playing with 10 guys on the field with Kirk Cousins. Those 4 and 7 o'clock primetime games really hurt him. But I digress. The Giants played a great game. and they travel to Philly this next week, so it'll be exciting. Then the nightcap, the Sunday night football game. Went in kind of pretty nervous. I'm a huge Joe Burrow fan, Bengals fan right now, as well as a Colts fan. Don't hate. I've always been a Burrow guy. But, really, I kind of figured the Bengals were going to win. The big thing was by how much. It was either going to be a blowout or a close game, and it was truly a close game. There was a couple plays where, Tyler Huntley trying to stretch, and he was 0.6 yards away from the goal line and it being a touchdown, and Sam Hubbard grabbing it and running it all the way back to the end zone for a touchdown. And just it was just a weird game. I don't know. That's kind of my opinion on it, but another sloppy game for the Bengals as well. So Bills-Bengals is going to be a crazy game. I'm super excited. That's potentially my pick for game of the year. With all the emotion and stuff going on a few weeks ago with DeMar Hamlin, thank God he's okay, and thank God he's been in the facility every day with his boys, and it's really good for him to show out like that. So yeah, it's awesome. And then the Monday night game, I got totally wrong. Brady, everything, all the media curses I think came true for Brady. Hadn't thrown a red zone interception since 2019. Threw one as they put that blip up on the screen. And then they just kept talking about, the Cowboys have never beat him. All that jazz, and everything just kind of went his own way, went the wrong way. So congrats on the Cowboys, I guess. So that was my second loss. So I ended up with 4.5 and 2. I'm sticking with my picks for the AFC and NFC championship games with Chiefs, Bengals, Niners, Eagles. The only thing, which we'll get into here very soon for the picks and analysis for the divisional round. Okay, so we're now going to dive into the divisional round of the playoffs this week. So the first game is 4:30 NBC. It's the Jags and the Chiefs. So it's obviously an Arrowhead. Kansas City's going to be rocking. They've been there before. They know what they're doing. I still think they're going to win. I'll give Jacksonville a chance because, their defense has really picked up. Doug Peterson isn't going to go down without a fight. He's a super smart guy. He's a great coach, I think. He should be in the running for Coach of the Year. As well as, Kevin O'Connell, Kevin Stefanski, and I think the winner's going to be Brian Daboll. Yeah, so we got, and, Trevor Lawrence has never lost on Saturdays, so that's always in the back of everybody's head going into this game, so it'll be interesting to see. You pray on the downfall of... Excuse me. You prey on the downfall of the leaders of the pack, and the Chiefs are the leaders of the pack right now. They look like they're the best team going into it, them and the Eagles. So, if Jacksonville can squeak away with a win, that would be huge, and they'd have huge momentum going into the AFC Championship. The night game on Fox, Saturday night. It's the Giants heading to Lincoln Financial to play the Eagles. Kind of same thing with like the Jags. The Giants are kind of this sleeper team. It kind of reminds me of when the Giants made it all the way, and they were like kind of similar 9-7-1 like they are this year, but they obviously weren't. But they were a wild card like team, like barely squeaked in there, and they made it all the way and won the Super Bowl, and they beat Brady. I don't know if that was 42. Maybe it was 47. Whichever one, I don't remember. But yeah, they made it and they won, and it was crazy. So I kind of feel something similar to that right now with the Giants. But this Eagles team is tough, and if Jalen Hurts is fully healthy, it'll be very difficult for them to win. Bye weeks are huge in certain sports, and I think football is a huge sport that bye weeks are definitely necessary. You know, an example where bye weeks may not be necessary for playoffs is like baseball with Wildcard Weekend. You look this year, all the teams that got bye weeks really struggled in the Divisional Round, which can there's positives and negatives to it. Obviously, with everything, you get that extra rest, but you're also missing out on some crucial game time. You get a lot of scrimmage time. I know in baseball they're playing the Yankees are playing a lot of like live game situation kind of stuff in the stadium against the team, but it's obviously you're facing your own guys, and everybody knows like practice and facing your own guys is totally different than in a game. So it's always the little things that I think kind of matter the most, but I digress. So the Sunday game, the Cincinnati Bengals are heading to Buffalo, New York, to play the Bills. This is the game of the year. Absolutely. You have Joe Burrow and the Bengals taking on Josh Allen and the Bills. With the Damar Hamlin stuff, I've already kind of spoke about this before. It's everything leading up to it, and I really truly think that the Bills are going to bring out Damar for pregame, and he's going to kind of get the whole crowd hyped up. It's the same game. Against the same team. It's not the same game, but it's the same team where he got hurt that night, and it's going to stir up a lot of emotions, and I think each team is going to try to ride the wave, and it's going to be a very wild game Sunday afternoon. So, and you have the Sunday night game, the Cowboys and the Niners. This is another tough game where I think it could also be a toss-up. You look at the Niners' schedule the last 10 games, and it's kind of weak. I think the only playoff team that they played was the Seahawks, if I'm mistaken. Let's look at their last 10 games, shall we? So, on this little win streak that they've had, but the Rams, they beat them. The Chargers, the Cardinals is not. So, the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Saints, Miami, Tampa, Seattle, Washington, Vegas, Arizona. And then obviously Seattle again. So, but, it's going to be good because I think the Cowboys defense is very good. They have Michael Parsons, potential defensive player of the year. Great secondary. They can cover a lot of guys. It'll be a great game. I don't think this weekend you're going to sit down and see a bad game. The only thing that may happen is if Trevor Lawrence throws 5 picks again, like he did in the first half against the Chargers, the Chiefs will not let them come back. I'm sorry, it won't happen. It will not happen. The Chiefs coaching, the Chiefs offense and defense are just too good. It's going to be like the Raider game, and they're going to start messing around, making different plays, and they're going to score off of them, just like they did against the Raiders. So, yeah. So we talked about, all 4 games. But, we'll see if Dak shows up again, just like he did against the Bucs. It could be another shootout game. So I think if you sit down this weekend, you expect to see a good game. All 4 of these games are going to be phenomenal. But yeah, my picks are Chiefs, Eagles, Bengals, Niners. So I'm not changing my picks there. If the Bills beat the Bengals, or if the Jags beat the Chiefs, or the Eagles beat the Giants, or the Cowboys beat the Niners, I'll make some changes, and the board will stay current with what's going on with the current playoffs. If stuff starts to kind of change around, I'll kind of put something to the side here where, like, maybe underneath it where you can see it, or something like that. But yeah, we'll do something where you guys can see it. So kind of sticking with the whole playoff theme. There's a comedian named Chris D'Elia that does this thing. He does this bit in a show. And he talks about how he doesn't watch the NFL, but he has these kind of thoughts in his head, like, what if these actual mascots went up against each other and played. Like, the Browns is just like kind of a family barbecue, and the Giants are actual Giants. Eagles are, just kind of how funny it would be. Like, the Texans are just people from Texas, just that kind of stuff. And I think it's just super funny. So if there's a war of real life mascots in the playoffs, a Jaguar versus a Chief. So the Chiefs mascot is actually a dog, but the chief would technically mean like a Native American tribal chief versus a jaguar. I think a jaguar is going to win, unless it's like the chief is super keen on hunting skills and kind of stalks him. I still think the jaguar is going to be able to sniff him out and get him. A giant versus an eagle. It's kind of a thing where if it's an army of giants versus an army of eagles, if we're thinking of like Jack and the Beanstalk giants, those things are like 20 feet tall. Giants in like Lord of the Rings, they're like 12 feet tall, so we'll just go there for reference. And then eagles, if they're fast enough, maybe they can do something like, peck their eyes out. But I think if a giant can grab enough, he can just sweep around, grab them, squeeze them, or stomp on them or something. I think a giant can take an eagle. Bengals versus the Bills. I mean, come on, son. Let's be honest. Let's be honest with ourselves here. A Bengal tiger versus a Buffalo Bill, or Buffalo Bison Bill. They're all the same thing. So, I mean, tigers hunt water buffalo for sport and for food in the wild. So a Bengal's gonna beat a bill. Now, this next one is actually a battle of real people. Cowboys versus 49ers. Now, you got to think. So Cowboys, obviously, we all know, kind of Red Dead Redemption, Arthur Morgan kind of stuff. Those kind of Cowboys, rootin' tootin', whattin' tarnation. And now you have 49ers. So an actual 49er is a minor 49er. So during the gold rush in 1949, those were the people rushing to mine and pick the golds. Or you can just think of a random person from 1949. Cowboys, they got that quick draw. They can ride horses. 49er just has a pickaxe. I mean, if they can hit all the dodging ball with a pickaxe, all the bullets hit them, and maybe throw their pickaxe at them, that would probably be about it. But I think a Cowboy takes the Niners. So that would be the Cowboys, Giants, Bengals, Jaguars. So on the NFC side, it would be a Giant versus a Cowboy. It depends on how strong the Giants are. If they could take multiple shots, then I think Giants would win. Would be the Cowboy. Because it would just kind of be the same thing. They just grab them and squeeze them and crush them. But if they're just kind of, one shot, they're going down. So that one's kind of a toss-up for me. I think we'll say Giants, just because I think they're going to be stronger and have to take more damage. And now we have the battle of the cats. The Bengals versus the Jaguars. So Bengals are bigger. Jaguars are faster. I think strength beats speed. I think a Bengal will probably get hurt pretty badly, but I think it'd beat him. If he can get him down on the ground and just, bite, I think it'll be good. So it'll be a Bengal versus a Giant. And then it's just an animal versus a very, very large person, and I think a Giant would win. So I don't know if there's any mascot that would actually beat the Giants. Maybe the Jets. They can drop bombs on them. Buccaneers are just pirates. Not the Chargers. Raven, no. The Browns, just a family named the Browns. Texans are just people from Texas. The Colts are baby Broncos, so no. Cardinals, no. That's the weakest bird. What other teams are there? just hit week 18. So the Raiders are just no more Pirates. Tennessee Titans. That would be it. I think a Titan would beat everything. Panther, Steeler, or just people from Pittsburgh that build buildings. A Packer. My friend Alex is a Packer. He packed cheese. A Commander. A Lion. Yeah. A Ram. No. I think a Patriot. A Bear. A Viking. I think a Titan would beat everybody. Just because a Titan is a Greek god. In mythology, this is probably pretty boring, but a Titan would destroy everything. Because it's like the father of all the Greek gods. But I digress. Alrighty, so I'm going to get back into another one of everybody's kind of favorite topic pieces of this show, and it's called Debate a Wall. And this time I actually did a little bit of research. Not really research, I just kind of wrote down some topics that I kind of wanted to put some input on and kind of bring some stuff back up that we talked about last episode with some more of the news that happened and went down and kind of what's been going on around the world of the NFL and kind of around sports. So, here we go. So, the first one is Lamar, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and kind of their futures with their respective teams right now and kind of where I think they're going and what they're doing. I'll start with kind of Tom Brady. You know, he's got a lot of time to think about it right now just because it's the wild card and, you know, he doesn't really have a lot going on right now and he's got a lot of time to figure out what he wants to do. He, in his press conference 2 nights ago on Monday, he was kind of discussing he wasn't discussing what his future was, but he kind of made it seem like he wasn't coming back to the team. And just kind of his quotes and what he was saying during the press conference after the post game, just kind of thanking the organization, thanking everybody. It seemed like he's kind of hanging it up. So some possible destinations are being kind of thrown around. I think it's too soon to tell, but San Fran, Vegas, the Jets. So we'll kind of see. It would be kind of really funny to see Tom Brady go to the Jets and have Zach Wilson try to make his life a living hell, like what he said. But it might actually help Zach Wilson become a Jet in the future and kind of have him learn under the GOAT. That would be cool. But if I were to pick where Tom Brady would go, if the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl, I'd say he'd go to San Fran. But if they win, they're going to stick with Purdy all the way. And if they get Brady, they could sign him to maybe a 1 or 2 year deal. I'd say maybe a 2 year deal with like a team and player option after the first year. Because he still has a deal locked up with Fox to be a commentator after he's done. So he still has that stuff. He could hang it up very well, very easily, you know. He didn't have the best season. He may want to kind of ride it out. He kind of proved to everybody that he can still make the playoffs and still kind of win a division. Even though it was kind of a weak division this year, he still proved that he could do it and managed to pull it off. The next guy, Aaron Rodgers. It seemed like he wanted to keep his jersey after his last game when he got eliminated, when Jamal Williams asked for it at the end of the Lions-Packers game. But we'll see kind of the same things, you know. All these teams are all kind of thinking the same. Jets, Niners, Raiders. Derek Carr can even be kind of thrown into this list of quarterbacks, because Derek Carr is still a very good quarterback, and he doesn't get the treatment that he deserves on kind of the elite. I think kind of Josh McDaniels set him up for failure in Oakland, and I do feel bad because I think he's a great quarterback. But back to Rodgers, you know. I could easily see him hang it up and call it a career too. Or, I could see him go to the Jets. There's some creepy things between Rodgers and Favre right now with like their final stat line was both two for 6 for like 68 yards and an interception to kind of end their season. And then Favre, that was both of their last games as Packers, and Favre's last game, the wind was 12 miles per hour, and Aaron Rodgers' last game, it was 4 miles per hour. So kind of the overlapping stat line like that. Shout out to PFT commentator for that on PM2 this morning. Shout out, no free shout out. But, I truly think if Brady doesn't retire, Rodgers will stay, and he'll go to whatever team that Brady is probably most projected to go to, in my opinion. Or if they both stay, one will go, I think, to New York, and one will go to San Fran if San Fran doesn't win the Super Bowl. And then it'll either be Oakland or New York there. And this last one, I'm not really going to dive into Derek Carr just because he's an enigma, to say the least, right now, kind of in my brain on what's happening with him. But Lamar, he's been out 6 straight weeks with his knee. I get it. I haven't had as serious knee injuries, but knees, it hurts. Knees hurt when they get hit a lot. So you kind of got to deal with that, get through that. So hopefully he does, and hopefully he can get back to MVP form. But all these people are thinking, he's going to the Commanders or he's going to the Jets. I think he's either going to the Jets or he's going to the Commanders. But my number one prediction for Lamar, there's something that nobody's really kind of talking about. That's the number one destination where I think Lamar Jackson is going. I think he's staying in Baltimore, and he's either getting a huge contract, which I think the huge contract thing is the last part, but here's the number one part. He's going to be franchise tagged. Now, here's why. It's a 1-year guaranteed deal. That's kind of another year of, you're playing great, but you got hurt. Prove it again. See if you can do it back to back. And some way they can leverage it into saying, if you play really well, we'll pay you what you want. If you win an MVP, you can kind of leverage something like that, be in the conversation, lead them to Divisional Round or AFC North champs, something along the lines of that. Because I truly do think if Lamar was in that wild card game, it would be a totally different game. And I do think Cincinnati loses that game if Lamar's in it. So I truly think he'll be franchise tagged. We'll see. And Derek with Derek Carr, maybe Houston if they don't want to go QB in the draft. If the Jets don't like anybody, if they only are going for Lamar, maybe Derek Carr goes there. Maybe Derek Carr goes to Washington because they seem confused about their quarterbacks. They played 3 quarterbacks the last 3 weeks of the season. So, we'll see. If you don't like any of those takes, you can go ahead and debate a wall. You know what? Go ahead and debate a wall. Next topic is more on the coaching carousel. Alrighty, so Arizona wants to interview with the Lions DC after Cliff Kingsbury, which is really funny. So Cliff Kingsbury has been getting calls about OC openings, which is hilarious. This guy took some of his money and booked a one-way ticket to Thailand and has no plans on when he's coming back, which is just funny. He is totally finessing the NFL system right now, taking his money and run, because he got a bag from Arizona. And, I feel bad for the guy. He was up against a lot of adversity, playing. I think they had 4 starting quarterbacks throughout the whole year. D-Hop was suspended for the first 8 games, so they only truly got 2 real games and 1 play with Kyler and D-Hop in the game, and literally they got 1 play with Hollywood, D-Hop, and Kyler. So that offense was kind of stacked against itself, and we'll see. Bills OC Ken Dorsey will interview with Carolina. He was also the Panthers quarterback coach there in their 2016 Super Bowl run, so there's a good chance. I bet Ken Dorsey gets that job. He's got history with the team, and I think it'd be a good fit. But no decisions will be made there until the Bills season is done. Nathaniel Hackett as OC for the Jets. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't think Nathaniel Hackett deserves a job. You've got a potential MVP candidate every year that he's been in the league except this last year, and Russell Wilson. He gets fired and the offense performs. I mean, their last game of the season, they played the Chargers, and the Chargers played all their starters because Brandon Staley's an idiot, and they beat him. And I was happy because it gave the Colts a higher draft pick, so I was super happy about that, so that'd be great. Let's see what other... Vic Fangio, DC for the Falcons. I don't really know much about the Falcons. I don't follow the Falcons. Frank Reich has been interviewed for the head coach of the Cardinals. I was kind of all aboard on the fire Frank Reich train just because me, personally, I'm tired of the Colts having a constant carousel of quarterbacks that are on the edge of their careers trying to get a second revival, and it's not going to happen. And we've had a lot of down years ever since Andrew Luck retired, and I think about him every day. Just the greatness that Andrew Luck was for the Colts, and it was greatness. We went from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck, and we had that 1 year that doesn't really count because we technically got the draft pick that we wanted, which was Andrew Luck, and it was amazing. I loved it. And his career ended way too short, but he's doing great things, and I wish him all the best. But ever since then, it's been terrible. Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, Sam Ehlinger. Not good. It's not been fun. I mean, we had the FedEx Ground Play of the Year last year in Jonathan Taylor, who had a wonderful season. I mean, he had 5 or 6 touchdowns against either the Patriots or the Bills or something last year. Had him on my fantasy team. It was great. Last year I had Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor, and if they would have stayed healthy, I would have literally ran my way to the Super Bowl and won the fantasy league. But alas, it happens. But I think Frank Reich was a good guy that was kind of set up to fail, and his quarterback projects never really worked out. So we'll see how that pans out, and if Frank Reich gets another job, good for him. If not, I'm sorry. Now the Colts and their woes. I said originally that the Colts are going to get Jim Harbaugh, and now that Jim Harbaugh has stated that he's staying at Michigan, I don't know. They interviewed Dan Quinn, the DC for the Cowboys, which I don't really like. I'm not a real big Dan Quinn fan. I'm not a Cowboys fan at all. So, if maybe in a Colts fan, I think my favorite one would be Eric Bieniemy, the OC of the Chiefs. That's who I would pick. And I can't really think of any other coaching positions, like head coaching spots, that other than Houston. I still have no idea what Houston's going to do. I don't know who they've interviewed. But here's a little Shefty tweet from 3 p.m. The Vikings and Pro Bowl wide receiver Justin Jefferson are expected to have contract talks this offseason. But as of today, the two sides have not yet begun any negotiations. He's going to stay, and he's going to sign with the Vikings. But he's going to get a bag, because I think the Vikings have had some of the best wide receivers ever, and they have no problem paying their wide receivers. So that's what they're going to do. And if you kind of disagree with anything that I just said about kind of the coaching carousel and Justin Jefferson, whatever, you can just go ahead and debate a wall. So my third and kind of final topic here is we're going to go into the baseball realm, and we're going to talk a little Carlos Correa. I'm not going to really talk about him a lot, but we'll also kind of dive into what people should really be excited about for baseball coming up, because I truly think baseball is a lovely sport, and it's fun, and people need to really kind of decide that baseball is a really great and fun sport and needs to be respected. So, yeah. The first thing, Carlos Correa. This man went from not taking his player option to stay with the Twins. Went to the Giants. Uh, 13 years, $350 million. And then I believe the Mets was like 12 years. Yeah, it was 12 years, $315 million. And then he ended up getting 6 years, $200 million. So he went from 350 to 200 years and 7 less years from that initial contract because of something on his physical. And I read something that Steve Cohen told the Mets that, here's why it came up. They didn't like it. Here's what the doctor said. Go to a different doctor if you get a second opinion. And the Mets went to the same doctor. Same thing happened. And so they had a question. They didn't like it. Twins were like, well, we just got our guy at literally more than half the years and $150 million less. And inked the deal, got him. And the Twins finessed again. So, good for them. Hopefully he plays well. Hopefully he stays healthy. If not, I don't really care, because they're going to lose to the Yankees in the playoffs if they make it again. MLB execs believe Shohei Ohtani could be baseball's first $500 million man when he enters free agency next season. It could very well happen. He's a two-way player. I think it will happen. It won't be for the Angels, that's for sure. They're going through a huge turnaround in ownership here coming up. The team's up for sale. They're kind of ready, and I could see the new ownership kind of want to go a different way and decide to open it up and start development, and they're not going to want to pay that much money right away, kind of right off the jump. So, we'll see. Tens of millions of dollars in Angels revenue. Wow. In other news, a lot of the international prospect signed this last week. The Yankees picked up, I think, the number 9 guy. So pretty cool. Vlad Guerrero's son agreed to a deal with the Texas Rangers, which is awesome. Pablo Guerrero. Crazy to see that I watched him play baseball too, and now I'm watching both of his sons play, and I'm pretty sure I'm older than both of his sons, and Vlad Jr. is one of the best players in baseball. Yeah, I don't think there's really much else baseball to talk about right now. Frankie Montas is missing a month due to shoulder inflammation, where Yankee fans got fleeced. Sad. Very sad. He was a great guy, great pitcher, but he's not him right now. But I'm still thinking 1-4. We still have the best rotation, 1-4, and the Yankees have so many options that people kind of forget. Clark Schmidt can start. Luis Gil is returning from Tommy John. Michael King's returning from an elbow fracture. I don't know if he'll be ready by the time spring training hits. I'm pretty sure he is. Who else? Herman's not bad either. I think the Yankees' biggest concerns are obviously the left side of the infield at shortstop and third base, and pretty much the left side of the field. Left field, shortstop, and third base. We're kind of too late in the free agency game to get a good guy at a fair cost. Anything else will be way too expensive at any of the 3 positions as far as the trade market. And right now the Yankees are not willing to give up any of their top 3 prospects, or I think any of their top 5. Jason Dominguez, Volpe, and Peraza seem like they're off limits, so which is cool with me. I'm okay with that. But if you're really devoted and dedicated enough to not kind of shoot for this super high shortstop market where Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, who else, a whole bunch of Correa. We just talked about him. Jesus, what? Correa. So many different options, and they didn't shake a stick at any of them. And apparently Brian Reynolds is this super key, high profile guy, and they weren't willing to give up any of their prospects there. So if you're not willing to trade your top prospects, they better play. And you better want them to play, and they better be good enough to play, because playing shortstop and third base is a huge boost for the Yankees, and it's a need, and especially at shortstop and third. The last really good shortstop and third baseman that we had was A-Rod and Jeter. I mean, they had their fits kind of at first when they started playing. They didn't really fit in well, but as time went on, they ended up winning a World Series together. And if you get Peraza and Volpe together on opening day right away, they can kind of find that and mesh, or even in spring training. Play them every single spring training game. They're young. Let them find that connection. If it doesn't work, you can put Oswaldo Cabrera in there, Trey Sweeney. I don't know if that would work. I know Trey Sweeney wouldn't work. Noelvi Marte, possibly. And, even invite Jason Dominguez to training camp, because why not? If I were GM, I'd invite my top kind of 25, 30 prospects to spring training. As many as I can, I'm inviting. I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just get all those guys and give them the Tampa papers and let them come. So that's my opinion, and if you don't like it, go ahead and debate a wall. All right, so this next segment is an interview. I interview the head strength and conditioning coach for Dakota State University. He is the owner and head trainer for Vassalotti Barbell, his own personal exercise regime, program, and gym. He's a firm believer and truster of the teaching and the influence of Westside Barbell, and he's a philosopher of the art of boom baby. He came in when I was a freshman. First time I ever met him, the basement of where our weight room was. It was the basement of one of our dorm halls. It was completely flooded, and our first workout was moving stuff to kind of help dry it. And he's a phenomenal guy, very smart guy. So please enjoy this very great interview. Today we welcome onto the show my former strength and conditioning coach, Coach Vassalotti. So how are you doing today, Coach Vass?
We are good. We are good, my guy.
Awesome. So kind of the first thing with this show that we start with is it's called This Magic Moment. And this is a moment in sports that would make someone a fan of a certain team, like, the Music City Miracle for the Titans or the very famous kick six in the Auburn-Alabama game. So what would you say is your magic moment in sports?
So this was actually one that stuck out to me because, and I know most people will know this moment, so it's not like it's a huge surprise, but I was in 2006 when, I think it was 2006 or 2007, when Vince Young scored the game-winning touchdown on fourth down from the goal line there against USC. So, the reason why I bring that up, it's not because at that point I didn't already love football. I loved football well before then. But what was cool about that moment was me and my dad stayed up to watch that. Of course, my mom, my sister went to bed and all that stuff, and that was something I always kind of remember because number one, it was an amazing game, and then number two, and in essence of the 65-7 butt whooping that we just
yeah,
this last time.
That was tough.
But with that being said, I think you look at a lot of especially collegiate athletics and just football in general. That was a cool moment. So that's kind of my hurrah moment there. So
yeah, as a Nebraska fan, anytime Texas wins, it kind of hurts. But
there you go.
You gotta recognize real. So you gotta. So kind of along the lines of keeping with the football theme here. Who was kind of your favorite player that growing up you wanted to be him or you kind of idolized as a kid?
Sure. It kind of changed over from the 90s to the 2000s. I was born in 91. And so obviously in 91, I grew up as a Packers fan. And so when Brett Favre kind of landed at the end of the 90s, early 90s into the 90s, as well as Reggie White, those were kind of some of my go-tos from the Packers side of things. But if I'm going to be honest about a singular athlete that kind of exploded at that time was Tiger Woods. And I think what was cool about that is and this isn't any offense to golf because, golf is always kind of, it's always been around. Obviously the PGA Tour is doing awesome. And I know the following has always been there, but for somebody like me who I didn't know golf, I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. Tiger Woods can make me watch golf. And if somebody can do that, I'm like, that's pretty good. So
yeah.
That's kind of my go-to was, when you kind of look at that question as your favorite player or just in general, somebody that I idolize, looking at Tiger Woods' rise to fame, obviously demise as well, and then rise again. And then now we're kind of in this new era of Tiger Woods as well, which is it's still very prevalent in the sport, but he isn't quite as good, or we just haven't seen it in a couple of years. So that's kind of my go-to right there.
Yeah, that's a great take, and a great person. I also kind of grew up kind of in the same way of just seeing him dominate. Masters win after Masters win, U.S. Open, Euro Tour, kind of all that stuff. And now you get to see him mentor and coach his son Charlie up, and that's awesome. So
yeah,
that's a good pick. So we got playoffs coming up. Basketball is kind of right in the middle of things. And kind of the biggest slogan that's been going around with all these players are, I'm him. So who's someone who you think in the sports world right now that's kind of him right now, balling out?
Oh, dude. Honestly, I looked at that and I was like, that's kind of a tough question. And just in general, because obviously you can have I always try to take out the bias because I grew up as a Packers fan and been a big Badger fan. And I think you kind of look around, look around the landscape that is college or professional athletics right now. And obviously I would love to say Aaron Rodgers, but everyone knows that was very much a down year for him, and to kind of see where he was at. I think you look at a lot of these young guns, and this is more just towards football aspect of things. There's kind of this new almost air in the NFL right now, and it's that's not anyone's take. That's everybody knows that. It's kind of cool. We're slowly waiting till Tom Brady finally retires, or Aaron Rodgers steps away, or something else happens. Josh Allen and all these guys that have been coming up. It's just so. I don't want to use the word bizarre, but I'm like, where's Peyton Manning? Where's Drew Brees? Where's all these people that I know growing up? And so, as far as that goes, I'm going to give it to the young gun quarterback in the NFL right now, is who is balling out. And it's going to be this next generation of quarterbacks that kids are like, oh, I like the Josh Allens, and I like and all the different. So that's just kind of a general statement. So
yeah, I totally get you. It's kind of weird. There was a folder that I had when either I had or one of my friends had when we were in elementary school, and it had pictures of all starting quarterbacks, and Manning was on there, Mark Sanchez before the butt fumble, all these super good quarterbacks, and the last two that are on there are Rodgers and Brady. So it's kind of a new evolution of players are coming in the game, and it's exciting to see.
Yeah.
So talking about people who get a lot of praise, let's kind of shift to the other side and kind of talk about some unsung heroes kind of in the sports world. Some people that work behind the scenes. For example, we look at a couple weeks ago, that Monday night game in Cincinnati, all of those trainers and stuff. Those are the people that, those are the behind the scenes workers that until that situation arises, don't really get a lot of praise. So who do you think are some unsung heroes?
So you went actually straight to, because obviously, my profession, being a strength coach, it's always kind of funny because this happens every year. Hey, who's the good bad coach? I'm like, well, it's not me. I'm a strength coach. That's what I get paid to do. I didn't go to school for 4 years and then 2 years of this and 2 more years of this to be said. I have to hold somebody's waistband and pull them backwards because they can't control themselves. And so, you kind of look at that. That's one aspect. I'm going to go straight to sport, though, and you already know who the most unsung hero is in football. It's 100% your offensive line. And so, I'm just going to go old school and just say your offensive line. I think you look at any great team, especially look at anybody that's left in the playoffs, obviously right now, you're going to have a premier offensive line. And the reason I just love those, it's the hogs up front. I played D-line in college, and so obviously that's going to have my backside to that as well. But I think a lot you see so much of it's who's the good corners, who's the good linebackers, who's the guy with the stats with the 15 sacks. And I go, don't forget about that D tackle that eats up double teams every play so you can run freely. And so those are just, I would say, unsung, not individually. I'm never going to use my profession, I think, just because that's just not my nature. I love what I do, and obviously I'm very fortunate to do it at a high level. But I know that I don't help athletes statistically make tackles or statistically guard someone or make dunks or hit a ball. That's their job. I'm just there to help put the wheels on.
Absolutely. And you have done that for sure. Let's get to this weekend. We got some divisional round games coming up. I believe the first game is the Jags and the Chiefs. So, powerhouse in the AFC, Kansas City, but the Jaguars coming in, I think they're one of the hottest teams in football right now. And Trevor Lawrence still has yet to lose on a Saturday, and they're the 3:00 game on Saturday.
Okay, yeah. So obviously you're looking at the 4 games. So Trevor Lawrence doesn't throw 4 interceptions. Let's start with that. Okay, I'd say they got a shot. But no, I think one of the big things you look at that is again, you go back to those young quarterbacks. I think it's pretty cool to see somebody like Lawrence. They compared his last stats in the last year to this year, and it's obviously dramatically different. They've done obviously the same thing with Joe Burrow's injury in there too, so sometimes that doesn't count as much. But you look at a lot of these young quarterbacks, it's not like, I go, look at Rodgers. Rodgers didn't play for his first, 3 or 4 years in the NFL. He sat behind Favre, right? And I think one of his first years, he was a 500 quarterback. And so it's always funny to be like, Trevor Lawrence isn't the answer. And then all of a sudden this year, they're like, well, over the last 7 to 8 games, Trevor Lawrence has whatever, 16 touchdowns. And I know he had those 4 interceptions, but before that, I think it was like 2 picks or something.
Yeah.
And so, you look at all that aspect of things. But realistically, who's the hottest team in the NFL? I still think the Chiefs. It is hard to bet against. So, but I think it will be closer. I think I look at us as 8.5 right now. I would say it's going to come down to a final score. So,
yeah, I would agree with you. We're kind of at the point right now, especially if you look at the Super Wildcard Weekend. All these games are going to be tight games. Like all these teams earn their way into the playoffs, other than maybe the Buccaneers. But they played in the weakest division. So.
I get it. Yeah. Oh yeah, we get all that. So.
Yeah. So second game is the Eagles. Yeah, Eagles-Giants.
Go Giants. That's all I'm going to say. That's all you need to know. You don't need to say anything else, right? I'm not it's always funny. You look at, obviously, again, you go back to Daniel Jones and he obviously went off in that game, but Saquon Barkley is, good Lord, watch out. This guy's running downhill. That's all that matters. Give him the ball.
Yeah, I love me some Big Ten running backs. I'm a Colts fan, so I love your boy Jonathan Taylor. We got, Saquon. Miles Sanders will be in this game. He's a Penn State guy too.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm getting a strong feeling with this Giants team, like 2007 when they went and just dominated through the playoffs and had that helmet catch in the Super Bowl against the Pats. So
I think it's hard for whatever reason too. I feel like it's hard to root against their head coach, and it's like no one really. I mean, I didn't know who he was till this year. I'm not gonna say otherwise. I know he's probably been coaching in the NFL for how many years, but
I think he was the quarterback's coach and maybe the OC for Buffalo last year. So he's a good dude. I've been seeing a lot of other videos outside of him coaching in the game. He's very for the fans, kind of like Zach Taylor and Cincy, and he's never hating on his guys or yelling at his guys. He's just keeping them up always.
He's fire on the sidelines though. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Yep.
But so Sunday afternoon, the 3:00 game, I think been calling it game of the century. Mm-hmm. Kind of with everything that's been happening the past few weeks, it's finally coming down to this. It's going to be Orchard Park, Bills, Bengals.
Yeah. This one I just have to give a straight shout out to Mr. Bolshe, because I know that he is going to be, obviously we're repping hard for his Bills. One thing I realized, and this is just in a net, you look at the complexity of everything that happened a few weeks ago. And, the reality is we're back to playing football again. And I think that's always a hard thing to do. So when you look at how the Bills have gone from these extreme highs to these extreme lows, and not taking anything away from Miami last week, but Miami had a good opportunity to basically oust a team that is a potential favorite for the Super Bowl. And you look at that and you go, why? And obviously you understand the playoffs and these are professionals. Everyone gets it, right? There's no easy wins, but the reality is the Bills probably were the hottest team going into the playoffs until that occurred. And now it's, can they clear their mind enough to get through and play the way they should play? And so for that reason, go Bengals.
Yes. Yeah. We are a pro Burrow show here, so I'm Bengals all the way too. I have them winning the Super Bowl. I think they're also pretty hot. Everybody kind of sleeps on them. I think both the Buffalo game and the Cincy game last week were just very sloppy games. And it might be true that if Lamar did play, maybe they would have won the game, but he also hasn't played for 6 weeks, and that team chemistry kind of.
Hey, let's play the hypothetical game. I'll throw one your way. What if Devontae Adams stays with Green Bay? Green Bay's probably in the playoffs. I'm not going to sit here and say otherwise. Rodgers didn't play well at the end of the season. He didn't play good enough to get them in the playoffs. If any team from the NFC North was deserving outside of Minnesota, it was Detroit this year. And I will be the first to admit that.
Yeah.
So.
You still own the Bears. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, there's no change there. No ownership change yet.
So the final game is the Cowboys and the Niners. Kind of a good old 90s football match here.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of look at this game, and so this is if you call roots to a Green Bay fan here, I've always been a fan of Mike McCarthy, and so it's really I'm really actually happy for him. I'm really happy they won last week because just the way that athletics is right now in general, not just at the professional level, but you look at college and you take a fact that they were talking, oh, if he loses this game, he's out as the head coach. I'm like, this guy just went through a season and won 12 games. Are you kidding me? 12 games. I don't know how many NFL teams or organizations would kill for 12 wins at the end of the season. But when I think you really look at it, I think we probably know this, but probably one of the hottest pickups in the midseason was probably Christian McCaffrey for the Niners. And so you look at what he's done for that offense. And obviously you're like, first of all, if you're a Niners fan, you're like, where the heck do we get 3 potential quarterbacks that could be our starters? Like,
for real.
It's just like, this isn't normal. And so like, because of that, I have obviously huge ties. I think secretly I want the Niners to win, but honestly, I think just rooting for Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, as much as that pains me to say,
yeah,
I think that's how I'm going to word that game. I think it's a coin flip. Obviously, whoever wins that has a really good chance, in my opinion, to potentially come out of that NFC side. But I don't know. It's really hard to root against Brock Purdy right now just because of the situation it is. It's like, that's what we live for as sports fans. We're like, who the hell is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, Mr. 7th round. It's like, all right, let's go. Let's ball.
Yeah, it's crazy. You kind of look at even just this whole all these coaches, I think, other than Andy Reid, have all they're all young, kind of first 3-4 year coaches.
Yeah.
And are just absolutely balling. So
yep.
First 3 years in their system, I should say. Because obviously McCarthy was in Green Bay. And
no, I agree. Because it's a completely different situation. Even obviously take that same situation with Matt LaFleur in Wisconsin here at Green Bay. It's like, even in that first year, I know they got instant success, but like there was some growing pains at the beginning of that season and things like that. So it's just like anything else. It's like the Giants. I think the Giants at one point were 7-5, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
I think they were 7-5, and they rattled off a couple wins at the end of the season. So
yeah, they're like 9-7-1. They tied the Commanders their first game.
Oof.
Yeah. Yikes. But anyway, let's move on. So with every guest, I like to kind of hear your Mount Rushmore of your favorite players. Now, this can be a hodgepodge of different sports. 4 of your favorite players. You could put Kobe, Derek Jeter, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. That could be 4.
Yeah.
Or you can have all 4 football, just 4 of your favorite all-time athletes.
Yeah, so this one I was like, when I read the question, I go, I'm going to sit on it for a night and I'll see what I come up with. And I think when I look at it right now, I would say number 1, I think it's self-explanatory. I think Jordan is still going to be one of your most influential. Tiger Woods, which is what we just kind of talked about. And then as far as that next player goes, this one will probably throw some people, but like on the female side, I think Serena Williams has done a fantastic job of really collecting a lot of people. Like I talked to you about from before, is like tennis isn't always the most watched sport in America, we'll say. All right. Okay. So with that being said, those would be the 3. And then obviously it's always hard because like from the football side, there's so many great names. But I feel like it's fair to only say names that like I know that I watched play the game. And I know there's crap around Brett Favre and everything he did too. And so outside just the player, not his decisions he's made in the last 2 years, but the player himself, I would put him in a pretty good category as well. Just for me personally, I grew up watching that guy. I mean, that guy was all guts and glory. When he lost his dad, I'll still never forget that game when he threw for 399 yards and whatever it was, 3 or 4 touchdowns. And like that game was just the complexity of what the human body can go through. Again, I know he's got some other issues in life right now. Again,
we're about on the field here.
Yep,
we're about on the field.
I don't want anyone to think I'm for anything he has ever done in his life in the last whatever months. So,
yeah, no worries. But yeah, I think those are all great. 4. Kind of with Kibby, what I did at last is there's always kind of one person that I kind of think of that you're going to put on there, and if it's not, I'll bring it up. Mm-hmm. One person that I thought you would, your defensive line guy, Wisconsin through and through. He's retiring. First ballot Hall of Famer. I thought you would put J.J. Watt in there.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think the one guy I'd probably put before him, I will say, as my number 5 would probably be Reggie White.
Okay.
And just because and I can get away with that because he's not only a Packers because he played for Philly and stuff. So like his career was over two teams. It's just what side of it that I watched was later in his career, obviously. And I didn't want to be cliche and say something like Lawrence Taylor or, something along those lines. But yeah, no, you're not wrong. J.J. Watt obviously had a fantastic career and he was fun to watch at Wisconsin and super happy for him. And they just had a kid as well as I just had my first son as well. So it's kind of it's cool for him to kind of be moving on from one aspect of his life into fatherhood, which is very exciting. So,
Alrighty. So kind of moving on, this is kind of now a little bit of your time. If I think of kind of any other questions that are quick, I'll bring it up. But right now, kind of the floor is all you, whatever you kind of want to plug or bring up.
Yeah. No, this is good. These kind of this is really cool for me. I've never done like a show like this where it's a little more it's way more relaxed, and obviously that's kind of cool. Normally, if you get asked for an interview, you're talking about what do you do for strength and conditioning, how do you train athletes, nutrition, all these other things. And so, I don't know. One of the things that I am definitely going to be focusing on in 2023, just in general, is just enjoy it. I think this year, obviously, everyone's. When they talk about sports and people get so married to their teams, right? I'm like, yeah, the Packers didn't make the playoffs. And I'm like, so what? I'm like, we're watching some really good football right now. Like, just get over yourself, right? Wisconsin football this last year didn't have a good season. So what, right? Move on. Like, we have so many other bigger things to do. And so I think for me right now is just going to be enjoying life in 2023. I have a lot going on with obviously my son and everything else, but as far as my plug, let's do this. So the wife and I are huge craft beer fans. And so I always like to kind of talk about some of my favorite beers. And so I figured this would be a good spot for that. As you said, I could talk about anything. So obviously my number one beer, which I would like to be buried with, will be Spotted Cow from New Glarus, Wisconsin. I have put that into my plug for my wife if I die first, that you must bury me with a keg of Spotted Cow. And so that'll be my number one. And outside of that, between the two of us, we're so polar opposites. So my wife likes IPAs. So for anybody who knows what an IPA is, it's basically like licking bark. So if you like tree, go ahead. A little citrus kick to it, absolutely, you can drink that crap. No, so we're very polar opposite. Like the wheat beers, I enjoy some good sours and things like that. And so those are all kind of those things. My second big plug is we recently a couple of years ago, we got into kind of bourbons. And that's been actually a lot of fun. You think about, I'd say I don't know what word to use, but I feel like we're more sophisticated now because, hey, at the end of the night, let's have a little nightcap, throw it on ice, sit that down, and then we'll go to bed. And I feel like I am kind of good in that. So we got some really good friends that kind of got us into some different styles of bourbon, and we don't have anything crazy. We don't have the Pappies that are $2,000 or $3,000 a bottle. But if anybody wants to share one with me, please let me know. I'll read it. But yeah, we like the bourbon's been really good for us and those sorts of things. And then my last little thing is for those who know, from Wisconsin originally, and cheese is probably. I don't know. I feel like I might be buried with cheese too at the same time. And this isn't just a cheesehead thing. I think it's always funny. They're like, oh, you're just from Wisconsin. You like cheese because of the Packers. I'm like, yo, I like cheese before I like the Packers. I think it's just in your DNA as a Wisconsinite that if you don't like cheddar cheese, you're just not welcome in the state anymore. You're just cut off. You got to go move somewhere else. So anyways, yeah, I would say those are some unique features about Coach Vass. Enjoying craft beer. Really like the bourbons and cheddar cheese till I die, I guess. So
booze and dairy, good to know. Yeah. Just a couple quick questions I have. So, I love when there's a really crazy call in the NFL, and the first thing I look for on Twitter is something for you to say. So, if you were kind of NFL commissioner, what would you kind of change? Kind of how the state of the game is now.
So this is always tough. And actually, you want to know who I talk to a lot about this. And if he ever watches this, he'll laugh. But Coach Glover, Alex Glover on campus here. And, when I grew up playing ball, it's kind of like where the game has been and where it's going versus everything we know about concussions and everything else, right? So first and foremost, let's talk about Tua in that situation. That shouldn't happen. I don't think there's a person in America that disagrees or agrees that that should happen. They would say that there needs to be a better way to make sure that that doesn't happen, that he doesn't go back in a game or do things like that. However, there's two sides to this too, right? I recently started following this kind of like neuroscientist guy. I think there's just so much we don't know about concussions. And this isn't a plug on the medical side because I'm not that person. Simply saying is take what it is that we know, and then why are we changing things that maybe do or don't need to be changed? So, of course, as a kid who grew up playing ball, loves big hits, loves when guys get absolutely murdered. That's a bad word, of course, murdered. You know what I mean? Just in general, get just demolished. It's part of the game. And I think that's the price you pay when you play a violent game. And again, I'm not saying that I agree with what I just said there. What I'm saying is that's the way that I've always been taught to be the game. That is the game of football to me. So now the question mark goes is, what's the longevity of the game if we continue down this route? Do we continue to want to see players like Tua go through situations like that? Or do we need to protect the players to a certain amount? So my initial answer is, if I was commish, I would change the game a little bit. You have to learn how to adapt. But man, it's really tough to watch right now because it is such an offensive driven league. I actually saw there was a play last week's game. Who was it? I think it was the Cowboys game. Player over the middle. They ran some slant route from like the 10-yard line. Guy caught the ball, and I can't make this up. The safety looked like he was coming in for a big hit, pulled up and just let the guy score. And I go, that's why. Number one, the guy goes, not worth the fine in case I go helmet to helmet, and I don't want to do a late hit or some other BS that goes on. And because of that, you're now starting to change the integrity of the game. And everyone will always say, well, Vass, and this is what, are we changing the integrity of the game to make it safer? Fine. There's elements of the game that can be that way. But I think there's a price to pay when you play a violent sport. And everyone goes, well, you want to be brain dead by the time you're 40. I go, you don't go to war expecting not to die. I'm sorry. It's just sometimes there's some prices that potentially could be paid. And everyone, and right, wrong, and different. I don't know. That's my dilemma in my head. So however the viewers, whoever will listen to this or whatever, however they see that, they think I'm a dumbass, that's fine. I don't really care. I grew up wanting to be part of football and part of the excitement that is around big hits and big motions. Because after a while, it's like, what's next, right? So you talk about things that are dirty in the game of football. I play D-line. I think chop blocks or cut blocks are absolutely dirty, but I also think it's part of the game. It's my responsibility as D-line to make sure I don't get cut down. I don't lose my knee. I don't potentially have a bad season-ending, career-ending injury. That's my responsibility. We won't even get started on the quarterbacks. Put them in a red jersey. That ship has sailed. The league has made it clear. We're going to pay these men $50 million a year. We're going to put a red jersey on them. That's fine. Move on. We won't talk about that.
We'll have to bring it back on, just talk quarterbacks and that stuff.
Oh, we could talk for hours on that.
One quick one. Your strength and conditioning coach, everything kind of circles around, performance, nutrition, health, kind of that next step to becoming greatness. You see in baseball now that a lot of the guys that are being up for the Hall of Fame are from that steroid era. Do you think people who have used PEDs, like, Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds, do you think those guys belong in the Hall of Fame?
So blanket statement, no. But the complexity of it, which is always what I get. So I always talk to like our baseball guys or just in general, whatever sports, do you allow it? And they say, well, if you take away or vacate what you suspect when they were roiding or cheating or whatever else, then you could still count those stats. Fine. I would be okay with that. However, everybody knows that once you take it, your body isn't the same once you get off it. And so one person I can think of is I used to play for the Brewers. And I'm not a huge baseball fanatic. Back when I was in high school, I actually followed the Brewers more until I got to college. But Ryan Braun was a big one.
Yep.
And everyone knows, like, when he got super hot and then he gets busted, we're like, well, then why'd you get hot? Everybody knew the answer. So I don't know. They're like, well, to me, what's the difference? So if you go on steroids and you hit 45 homers a year versus 30, I don't know. Again, this comes back to integrity. We could talk for a whole nother hour on the integrities of humans and morals and everything else. There's two ways you can fix it. Number one, make it legal across the board, because everyone will say that, then it's legal. But then how do you regulate it? There's obviously millions of questions you'd ask there. But I'm an integrity guy. No, so everyone says put an asterisk next to it. No, take it away.
Yep. Alrighty, well that's all I have for you. Do you have anything for me before I let you go?
No, man. That was this has been fun, and absolutely, I would love to come on again. I think getting my first kind of spiel here, and obviously being able to help you in what you're trying to do right now is really cool too, Cam. And so, yeah, man, I'm game for more down the line.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Coach Vass, and good luck on this season, kind of for the rest of the sports at VSU, and good luck to your family and all that you're doing.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Coach Vass. Shout out to him. He took time out of his day to come out and talk some shop, talk some sports with us. Really appreciate him. He's a great guy. I interned for him in the weight room for about 2.5 years, and it was great. Loved it. Had some great times with him. So shout out to him. Just gonna kind of round out the show with a few things. I really thank you guys for your support with the first episode. Really enjoying this, learning a lot of new things, and having fun with it. Kind of really enjoying talking sports. So I'm gonna kind of round out the show with something. Maybe we'll talk sports. Maybe some TV shows, video games, some upcoming projects that I kind of have some ideas that I'll bounce off with you guys. So that's kind of what this outro is gonna be for a little bit. It's just kind of maybe ranting, telling you guys what I'm watching on TV, movies that I watched or whatever. So here we go. First thing I kind of wrote down is what I'm watching this week. So first thing I highly recommend was The Last of Us on HBO Max. It was about an hour and a half. It was really good. Kind of captured everything you want in a first episode. Character introductions, kind of introducing a plot, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I thought it was very good, very interesting. It's got Pedro Pascal in it, who plays the Mandalorian. If you like that, and I'm not a very big fan of zombie movies or TV shows. I liked Zombieland. Those movies are very funny, very good. But yeah, I'm not never watched The Walking Dead, never really got into it, but I really like this one. So far, I mean, first episode was very good, very interesting. Another thing I watched, it's a new movie called The Menu. If you liked Glass Onion or Knives Out, it kind of gave me those kind of vibes, but didn't really think it was that good, in my opinion. Left me with more questions than answers after finishing that. I'm also kind of in the middle of watching That 90s Show, the spinoff of That 70s Show. Not really knowing how I feel about that yet, but we'll see. So yeah, positive views on The Last of Us, not so positive on The Menu, and so far the jury's still out on That 90s Show. Another thing, I'm a huge gamer, avid gamer. I like to play video games in my free time, and one game that I really like a lot is MLB The Show, and it just came out on Xbox last year, and I had about 45 days of game time with MLB 21, The Show, and I'm about at 19 days of game time with 22. And that's saying something. I mean, when I started playing 21, I was still in school, and I had a lot of free time, kind of balancing between school and football, coaching, and even my job. So that kind of plays into it. But even just whenever I play MLB The Show 22, there's always a time where I get super frustrated and I seriously contemplate deleting the game. The collections are much harder. The game is just so much different with hitting, all that stuff. And it feels like games that I've played lately, Call of Duty, MLB, Madden, I can't play them for that long, maybe like 30 to 45 minutes to an hour at most a day. And it gets so frustrating because the game needs to be fixed desperately. You're seeing it kind of across the board in all games. Scump, a very big Call of Duty player, professional, retired and he's like one of the best to ever play, and he's still very good. He just retired in the middle, kind of the middle of his gaming prime, which is just sad to see. But state of gaming is kind of lacking, and it needs to be fixed. But speaking of gaming, I have some upcoming ideas revolving around that. Maybe some streaming, maybe MLB The Show. I've got an idea with NCAA football. I have NCAA football 14 for my Xbox 360. I'm thinking of starting a coach and kind of going through a dynasty for a coach, and starting in as like an OC of like maybe a mid SEC school for NCAA football 14, which would be like an Ole Miss or something like that, and then just kind of gradually improving and trying to get into like a head coaching position at like Nebraska or Alabama or some highly touted school. I've also thought about doing the same thing with like a road to glory, like a quarterback or something, just kind of leading up to this next NCAA football 24 that will be coming out next summer. So, just bouncing some ideas off. I'd like some feedback on it. It'd be greatly appreciated. Please leave me a message in the comments, or just let me know via social media or something. So that's episode 2 of the We Know Ball Show. It's a wrap. Thanks for listening, tuning in, and have a great week.